Hello and welcome to Reality Vomit, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, here to discuss Amazing Race Season 1, Episodes 5 and 6. Guys, I'm telling you, this season is actually really good. A lot of times, I don't recommend modern fans, people that are used to the modern way of a game, go back to the start. That's usually watching something season by season, starting from the beginning, work your way through. That's something for diehard reality fans like myself. But season 1 of The Amazing Race is fucking cool. I recommend watching that. As I go through other seasons, I'll be able to maybe tell you what to avoid, unless you're just really into The Amazing Race. But this season is pretty interesting. I definitely recommend watching season 1. So without further ado, let's just do it. Let's jump in. Yes, we don't have Dave and Margareta anymore. That's very sad. We don't have Pat and Brenda, but we got 7 teams duking it out for $1 million. 2 episodes to talk about. Let's do it. So basically, we start off. The teams get to mingle a little bit at the pit stop, get to interact with each other, get to enjoy not being mobile, relaxing, resting. It's a long race. You got to take your moments when you get them. And their first clue is they must go to Tatooine. That's where fucking Star Wars is. I did not know that Tatooine was a real place. Like, it's not a planet, and it's spelled differently, but Tatooine exists. It's fucking badass. And starting off, the frat bros, they're hot on the Guidos trail. The frat bros and the Guidos have been, switching from being, one time the Guidos finished before the frat bros and the frat bros before the Guidos, back and forth, like they jump kind of around each other. And both teams very confident in themselves. The frat bros think that they're like, we're going to beat the Guidos every time. And the Guidos are like, we're just superior to, they call them the fatties, not the fratties, which is a little bit of a dick move. And Nancy and Emily are already arguing with our cab driver because he's like taking this time to talk with another cab driver. He's not going. And it's like, look, we're in a race. And he's like laughing at them. It's like, look, asshole, you're trying to get paid because you're a cab driver. We need to go. I'm not on your time. You should be on my time, you son of a bitch. Like, I'd be pissed. And Paul and Amy were slowed by production for some reason. They didn't really specify. But due to maybe they had to change camera batteries or switch something out, they got put a little behind. So they got a time credit and were able to move up a little bit, leave a little earlier. But Amy is sick on this leg. She's throwing up. Not really entirely sure what's wrong, but it's not going to be fun to do driving today. And Frank and Margarita talk about that. Margarita wants to talk about their relationship now that they've spent a lot of time together. And Frank's like, look, let's focus on strategy. Let's focus on the race. After the race, we'll talk about everything you want to talk about. And I understand that. Like, yes, they came on this show to see if they could get back together. However, we're still competing here. We still got a job to do. Let's do that first. Then, whether we win, lose, or draw, then we'll talk about it. Then we'll see what we can do. I completely understand Frank's side here. Very rarely do I agree with Frank, but on this one, I got to give it to him. Makes sense. And the lawyers are trailing. Like they really fell behind in the last leg, and it seems like it's going to be, unless everybody evens out due to a travel thing, they're going to be behind. And Lenny and Karen, things are still tense. Like every time that they're alone, it's just silence. But like tension, you can cut with a knife. Like they got some shit to work out. They may not be together very long after this season. Paul and Amy talk about if they win, they want to use the money because Amy wants a very specific kind of wedding. It's going to cost a lot of money. So basically this $1,000,000 is going to have a very expensive wedding. So the frats continue to chase the Guidos. And basically the challenge is either you go and do a puzzle, or you do this, you go to where Star Wars Tatooine scenes were filmed, which I would have been like, yes, I don't care, we're doing that one. And you have to use a walkie-talkie to find another walkie-talkie, which will have your next clue. And that just seems more fun. Like a puzzle, it could be super hard. You may not be able to do the puzzle very fast, but with this walkie-talkie thing, walk around long enough, you'll find it, right? It just seems easier, thinking out loud. So nobody picks the puzzle. Everyone goes for the walkie-talkie. I think it is the obvious choice. And also you can choose to hire a driver for this part or drive yourself. And the frat bros are one of the only teams that actually hire a driver, and it actually does seem to help them a little bit on this leg. They're not the only team that does it, but they're one of the few teams that did it. And it's even funny because at first Drew goes to get in, and he's like, well, we can hire a driver. And he's like, well, why the hell am I driving this thing for? Let the driver drive. They always have, like I said, every line that the frat bros have is gold. The way they interact with each other is perfect television. So I wrote most of their conversations with each other down because it's comedic genius. Nancy and Emily, they kind of team up with Paul and Amy. They're going to kind of go side by side, follow each other. Nancy and Emily did this with Drew and Kevin. They did it with the other teams. They really like to stay neck and neck with teams, and that's dangerous. You could lose that way. You need to just race your own race. You can be friends with people and not help them with every single leg. And then, there's a scene where Drew and Kevin are talking to their driver, do you have a walkie-talkies? And he's like, are we supposed to talk to this guy? I don't think this guy's supposed to talk to us. He ain't talking to us. It's they're just so, they have so much energy. And Drew, he's like, listen, I'm an expert with walkie-talkies. Let me handle this. Kevin's like, he thinks he's a cop over here, so we're going to let him go ahead and try to do this thing. And he's like, hello. And he's like, oh, wait, just shut up. Just shut your mouth. You hear that? You hear the static? I hear it. Well, dude, I have much experience with walkie-talkies, and when you get them close together, there's an interference, so we know we was close. So the frat bros, they notice that they get their clue, but they notice the Guidos are coming. And they also call them Bert and Ernie. So the other teams must have come up with this analogy together because they all seem to go to the Bert and Ernie thing. Which follow up to last podcast. Bill is Ernie. Joe is Bert. That is very clear, as we'll see in this episode. So the frat bros get on top of the roofs. They go the opposite direction because they don't want to just walk straight from the clue because the Guidos are they came from over there, let's go over there. So they're walking on the roofs, and the Guidos take that bait because they're up on the roofs I think they were up here on top, and they're I don't see anything. And they end up just kind of looking stupid by the end of it. And the lawyers, I don't know if they got a bad driver or what happened, but they are falling more and more behind. There's a big gap between them and even Lenny and Karen. And if you can't keep up with Lenny and Karen, you're in trouble. But Lenny and Karen's driver, I guess, isn't driving fast enough for them because Karen is up his ass about it. But Karen is very nitpicky and very condescending, very naggy, as I found in the race. I thought it was just Lenny, but Lenny sucks, and she's a lot. She is a lot to handle. And Lenny's snoozing too. So it's she's overbearing, and he just has no energy ever. So it's you think low energy and high energy would yin yang each other, but it's the opposite. They just make each other explode. So they must find, after they go to the walkie-talkies, they must find a route marker in the desert, these yellow stones and then a flag. That is when you're driving through sand in the daylight, trying to find something that is yellow is like, I know yellow is the Amazing Race's color, but also black is the Amazing Race's color too. You couldn't have put black stones in a black flag. Like, you put something that doesn't reflect very well off of sand in the daytime. Horrible idea, and you'll see in the episode, people take forever to do this because it's fucking hard to find this shit. But they have a compass. And that's how I know I would be fucked in early Amazing Race, because I'm horrible with maps and compasses. And it's basically a needle in a haystack type of deal. And Amy is just puking her guts out. So she is almost completely incapacitated at this point in the race. And the lawyers and Lenny and Karen, when everyone else is doing the walkie-talkie stuff, they haven't even gotten there yet. Like, they just left to go there. So when everyone else is doing the task, they are just now getting in the car to go to the task. That's how far behind these two teams are now. And it's Paul and Amy. Whenever they do a task, Paul does something weird. And at this point, when you talk to the walkie-talkie, you should just say a couple of things. But like, say it like a sentence or a phrase and then let it go to try to hear the ch as it's cutting in and out. But also so you can hear your own voice. And he's just going, Amy, 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 Amy. It's like, okay, you're not even trying to listen. You're just saying shit. And second of all, don't say the same thing over and over. Like, try to, fluctuate the volume of your voice. Try different phrases. Try to listen for that as it cuts on. Give it a little space. Wiggle around with it. Don't just... It's very stupid what he was doing. It's like in Big Bang Theory, the penny. It was Amy, Amy, Amy. So dumb. The frat bros they're in the car arguing like, I can't put my seatbelt on. Oh, it's because I'm too fat for you to put the seatbelt on. Don't worry about it. This is beautiful, beautiful television. Paul and Amy, they get in their car and they go, but they cannot figure out the compass. They're terrible. They're like me. They're terrible directions. So, not doing so hot. And Lenny just walks in and he's not using the walkie-talkie. So she's like, are you even using the walkie-talkie? And then he goes to use it and she's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to use the walkie-talkie. Lenny, why are you doing this? And it's like, okay. You told him to do it, he's doing it. Because Lenny's kind of like a kid. You have to continuously tell him what to do. However, Karen just won't let shit go. She likes to just keep on you. And it's a very dysfunctional team. That's why they're always in the back of the pack. Because, unless they have lucked out, because all the other teams have had some random thing put them in the back. Because Lenny and Karen should have been gone the second episode when Lenny fucked up and went to Notre Dame. Because he didn't actually look out of the telescope. They should have went home then, but they got lucky that the sisters fucked up too, and then gave them the answer. And then they lucked out that Pat and Brenda went to the wrong pendulum. Then they lucked out that, without certain things going wrong, they would have went home episodes ago because they cannot communicate. And the lawyers are the worst at this task. They shone a lot in the first 3 episodes, and now they take forever to complete this walkie-talkie task, and they are in the back. They're in last. Lenny figured this out quicker than they did. That's a problem. And Lenny and Karen, it's a silent car ride. You can tell this relationship is not going well. On the frat bros, you'll see in the episode that when people find there's like a gas station or a pit stop with stuff in it, kind of looks abandoned, but there's a guy in there. You're on the right path when you go there. Like, you're on, heading the right direction. So they get out and they're like, I don't see any flags here, Kevin. I just see a bunch of spiders. There's big-ass spiders here. Well, that's a sign we shouldn't be here. Let's go. Wonderful with the frat bros. We need more frat bros in these episodes. And Joe and Bill have a tiff. This is where the Bert and Ernie situation comes in. Because Joe is apparently speeding because they're in a race. And Bill's like, look, you need to slow down. Joe's like, stop telling me to slow down. He's like, well, you're not being safe. And he's like, stop telling me that. And then Bill just starts like rubbing his head. And he's like, oh, you're fine. Joe's like, I'll be fine if you stop nagging me. And it's like that's the Bert and Ernie. Like, Bill is clearly Ernie. He's the jokester. He's the one that's always like, calm down, Joe. And Joe's the more serious one. Therefore, he's the Bert. So that really cemented that analogy for me. The frat bros find the marker first. This whole leg, they stay just like so much ahead of everybody else. So they find the marker, and they make their way out. They have to drive out to the next place. And they walk out to it, and Drew's like, I'm going to go ahead and pee. Kevin's like, no, you idiot. The sign says here. It says Drew's a dumbass. Keep going. He's like, but I have to pee. And he's like, just keep moving, you friggin' idiot. Love it. Lenny and Karen, they keep turning around. It's like they'll drive for a little bit, and Lenny's like, turn around. And the guy turns around. They drive for a little bit the other way, turn around. He turns around the other way. It's like they're passing people going the right way, and he still keeps going the wrong way. So they're just going in circles in the desert because Lenny can't make up his mind. And he's not thinking, he's just saying things because Karen is overbearing. So if he doesn't come up with something quick, she'll just yell at him. And Margarita's also, everyone's having a hard time with compass. Not a lot of people use compasses all the time. Definitely not nowadays, but even back in like 2001, I believe, when this was filmed, also not super prevalent. People, unless you're traveling all the time, you're not very proficient in these things. The lawyers make it to the spider shack, so you know they're on the right track. Hey, that rhymed. I just noticed that. That note rhymed. That's awesome. Love it when that shit happens. And Amy's just struggling to do anything. And Paul's not helping. He's like, what are you doing? Why can't you do anything? Every time I look back there, you're just puking. You want to quit? And it's like, Paul's go-to. He always wants to quit. And basically, Drew and Kevin get there, and it says one person. He's like, who wants to do the roadblock? And Kevin's like, I'll do it. Drew's like, all right, fine. You can do it this time. And the person doing the roadblock rides the camel. The other person walks beside it. So Drew's like, why do I always get screwed? I gotta carry the torch. I gotta, go in the sewer. And now I'm walking why you sit your fat ass up on a camel? And Kevin can't steer it. And he's like, you friggin' idiot. Yeah, have you ever rode a horse before? And so now Drew is walking next to this camel and also guiding it because Kevin is having a hard time. And Lenny and Karen are just lost. And Karen is just up Lenny's ass. Like, you had to turn around. You're an idiot. Why do you always do this? And I get it. He is very terrible at most things. But you need to calm down. And teams are very much struggling to find the camels. That's not... it's hard to ask locals for directions because they're not great at English or super familiar. Because you're looking for yellow stones in sand. Not great. And Drew and Kevin are just walking with the camel. And Drew's lamenting about all the tasks. And Kevin's like, it's getting kind of hot up here, Drew. We need to hurry up. And he's like, when you get off that camel, I'm going to beat your ass. I love their relationship dynamic. It's so much fun. So basically from there, you take the camel to the pit stop. And Paul and Amy are falling apart. Because things are just not going well for them. So Joe and Bill get to the camels as the frat bros are almost done. As they're approaching, and he's like, look, you gotta duck from that thing. And he's like, I can't duck, you fucking jackass. You hit me with all these branches. And he's like, well, maybe, if I was on the camel. And so the frats arrive in first place. And the Guidos think they're first. But the Guidos come in second, and then Nancy and Emily, surprisingly, come in third place. They managed to maintain their third place spot from the last leg without help from the frat bros this time. And the other teams who are still driving are starting to lose hope because they don't know that any other team has had as much trouble as they had. So in their minds, they're the only team just driving around the desert. They think, fuck, I think we just lost this race. Paul, per usual, it's another day. He's like, yeah, we should just quit. I'm just tired of it. I'm over it. I'm done with the race, as he says every day. And as usual as well, Lanny's being slow and Karen is nagging him. And so Lenny and Karen are doing the camel, and while they're arguing, Frank and Margarita go around them. I've never seen a camel pass another camel. Like, I've never seen two people riding a camel and someone go around someone. And that's what happened, is Frank and Margarita go all, like, they start out way back here to the side and come and go all the way around Lenny and Karen. It was a beautiful sight to see. So the lawyers get there at number 4, Frank and Margarita number 5, and Lenny and Karen, luckily, because Paul and Amy sucked so bad at the directions, get to number 6. And Paul and Amy, not only do they don't find the marker, like they don't get on a camel, they drive their car all the way to the pit stop. Like, they didn't even know about the camel. And they get there, and everyone's like, oh my God, we're just happy you're not dead out in this desert. And Phil's like, look, guys, you know you're last, right? And you're like, yeah, we figured. And so they're in 7th place, and they're eliminated from the race. My final thoughts on Paul and Amy. As I've stated in previous installments, I was kind of hoping they would go out. However, I was kind of hoping that Lenny and Karen would go before they did. Particularly because Amy, while Paul wanted to quit every day, Amy really seemed to genuinely want to win this race. And I wanted to see her go a little further. And it was sad to see her go out sick as well. But they are really bad at the directions, and this, the teams, the middle ground teams, this is where they go home. Because the strong teams are going to continue forward, and the teams that aren't as strong are going to slowly, the middle of the pack is getting smaller and smaller, The top three or so teams have stayed the same for the most part, and there's 6 teams left now. Not a lot of wiggle room. So where 6th place was good, now it's not. So things are getting down to the nitty gritty per se. So that brings us into episode number 6. A sandstorm basically makes them have to evacuate to another place, and they head out. And look, it's hard to find a cab at 3 a.m. in the desert. Not super easy to do. So it's a little tricky to try to find your transportation. And the Guidos are discussing how everyone is intimidated by them, and they enjoy that. They want, in my mind, they love being the villains. And I've said in my old strategic gaming podcast, when I used to do that with other people, the best reality show villain is not the one that is hypocritical. It is the one that is doing mischievous shit and owns and embraces the fact that they are doing mischievous shit. And that's what the Guidos are. Like, at first I said no, the lawyers are more of the villains. But now, with this episode, and we'll talk about more stuff later, the Guidos are the villains. They are the bad people that you want to see go. At least, the average viewer would root against. I like them around because they cause drama, and I like drama on my TV. But they embrace the fact that they're the villains, and that makes me like them more. The best villains are the ones that know it and own it. And the Guidos are all about that. I love it. Both them and the frat bros are very cocky about their positions in the race, and they should be, because the frat bros in the first episode almost went home. They finished in the bottom few teams, and then jumped up and continued to improve their status and have maintained those top 3 spots. That's very impressive. Yes, they used the fast forward, but at that point I think they were in like 4th place heading out, something like that. So they really worked hard and have been very successful in maintaining a lead. Even like giving the Guidos, who are a tough team, a run for their money here. And Emily, is shocked. She's like, I'm surprised I'm still here. And I agree. I'm shocked. When I started to watch this season, and I'm podcasting as I watch these episodes, so I don't know the outcome. But at this, I watched the first episode, and it was introduced to all the teams, and I was like, Emily and Nancy are not going to last long because they're very opposite. Nancy can't really handle stress very well, and Emily is young and has a temper. And they were toward the bottom of the pack. But they have managed to not only stay in the game, but to place third the past couple of times. So they have established themselves as a threat. They're still not as much of a threat as the Guidos, the Frat Bros, or even Frank and Margarita, but they are, they're in the top 6 teams. And unlike Lenny and Karen, they have a chance. The teams, they're trying to lift each other's spirits, because when you're this deep in a game and things have been kind of tense, it's exhausting. You're mentally, physically exhausted, and you need to kind of keep that high spirit going of like, we can win this. Like, we're solid, we're communicating, we're good. And the only team that really isn't doing that right now is Lenny and Karen, but for obvious reasons. The need to go from Tunis to Rome to the Colosseum. But the flights are difficult because the Rome airport is striking. So it is almost impossible to get a direct flight to Rome. And even more than that, the connecting flights, it's risky because if you go to another place, those flights can get fucked up and you can end up like not even close where you need to be. So the Guidos get to the airport first and managed to get the only 2 tickets available for any flights to get anywhere near Rome. So everyone's freaking out because they're like, the Guidos are going to be so far ahead. And the Guidos are just laughing. They're like, these people are going to be like a day behind us. We're just going to ride right into first place. I just want to watch the chaos. These guys, they wish they were us. They're very much embracing the villaindom. And the Frat Bros, and I will start out by saying, this joke was in very bad taste, especially in an airport. Post 9/11. I think this was post 9/11. This might have been right before. This was in 2001, so, I don't know where it fell. But the Frat Bros, it was Drew, jokes about breaking the Guido's legs because they're speaking French. He's like, careful, I'll break your legs. And I know he was joking. He was just, in his own way. But this gives the Guidos fire in which to come at you with. And so they're like, we speak French too. And the Guidos start speaking French, and they obviously don't understand. And there's a bit of both teams trying to intimidate the other. So Kevin manages to charm a travel agent. And they not only get themselves, but the lawyers and Nancy and Emily tickets to another place for a connecting flight. And the Guidos are like, fuck, because the flight if all their connections happen in succession, they will be like 2 or 3 hours ahead of the Guidos. Now the Guidos are like, fuck, that's 3 teams ahead of us. There's only 2 teams behind us at that point. That's not good. So now they're starting to panic because now they were the only teams going to move forward. Now there's people moving forward faster than they are. Drew even gives the girl a bracelet. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much for everything you're doing. But they don't have a lot of time to get through customs. So can you please ask them to hold the plane for us? We will be there as fast as we possibly can. And the agent does do that for them. Keep that in mind for some shit that goes down later. So Frank and Margarita are heading to London and trying to go from London to Rome. So everyone's kind of heading in a different direction. Lenny and Karen, they're going to wait to try to get a direct flight to Rome, wait for that strike to be over. And the Guidos are very nervous about their places. So what they do is, as the three teams, the frats, the lawyers, mother, daughter, are making their way to board their plane, they get in front of them, block the entrance, and basically make a scene at the entrance to try to get them to miss that flight. But what they did not know was that they had gotten a lady to hold the plane. So the plane is waiting for them, and they are trying to block them for a plane that they're not going to get on. So some shit went down. There's a little bit of an international incident here. And everyone is pissed. We don't see it, but there was potentially a point where the frat bros and lawyers say that Joe or Bill pushed Nancy. What I think happened is they stepped in front of Nancy and blocked her, which is not great. But they did that. And they owned to that a little bit by blocking her. So everyone is now pissed at the Guidos. So the three teams leaving are on the way to Lyon. The Guidos are going to Zurich. And Lenny and Karen managed to book a flight. They waited it out and managed to go straight to Rome. So the first time in the entire race, Lenny and Karen are in first. They're leading the pack. Keep this in mind for some shit that goes down later. So when the three teams get to Lyon, the connecting flight was canceled. So the three teams are now trying to get a flight to Milan, and then from Milan, take a series of cabs and buses and trains. So their day is all fucked up. And so the Guidos get to where they're going and manage to take a taxi. So the Guidos have now went from a very odd situation to now in second place behind Lenny and Karen. So Frank and Margarita also get stuck in the London airport because when they get there, the only flight to Rome will not leave until the next morning. So they can't do shit until the morning. So they sleep in the London airport under a stairwell. Like, the travel in OG Amazing Race was hard as fuck. Teams now, the flights are pre-booked. And based on your placements, you get the first, the second flight, or the train, or the bus, or the boat, or whatever. You don't have to book it yourself. So there's none of those blocking the gate shit's going down. But it's easier. You have to just focus on the tasks and the race. Here, they can't help that the Rome airport was striking. They couldn't help that the connecting flight was canceled. Like, there's shit that is not in their control that happens, and you could lose the race because air travel was bad that day. It's crazy. Honestly, there's a little more of a dynamic to this. I don't know if I like it better booking it ahead of time, or if I like the craziness of the job. I did not like the first episode where they just kept fucking showing people trying to book a flight on the phone. That was annoying. There was no music, and it just all was just too much weird pauses. But they cut down on that. It's more so, and granted, there's more tension because the race is tighter now. But in that first episode, I think they learned their lesson. The first episode was a little sloppy, and it's only gotten better, honestly, since. So the three teams managed to get their series of buses and cabs, and are now, everyone's on their way to Rome. And they must find either a giant foot or a horse statue. But if you get to the horse statue, you're able to get a cab. So it's harder to find, but you'll be able to make us some time because you don't have to travel on foot. But basically, you can't do shit until the museums and shit open up, just like in the last leg. So everyone's just waiting, and the morning will start the new adventure. So the three teams that the mother, daughter, lawyers, and frat bros are waiting by the hoof. And now here come the Guidos. And the Guidos are like, oh, shit. Good morning. And Drew's like, don't you ever say good morning to me ever again. And you're like, oh, boy, it's tense. It's bad. It's not good. It's a little weird. So the gate lowers, and the race is on again. It's just like day one. Everyone's sprinting upstairs, trying to get to this thing first. And so the three teams tell the other, Lenny and Karen and Frank and Margarita about the shit that happened at the airport. And Lenny and Karen talk to the Guidos. Frank and Margarita are just like, fuck them, we don't want to be involved with this. And so they get two exaggerated sides, and obviously the truth lies in the middle. But does it really matter for their sake? Not really. So the Guidos and Frank and Margarita, they get off the train that they're supposed to take after the hoof part. They're supposed to take a train straight through, and they get off halfway to take a taxi. But it specifically said in the clue to take the train all the way through. So they, even though they'll finish the race, will get a time penalty. But as we'll find out, the time penalty does not affect the placements whatsoever. So even though they got penalized for this, it ultimately does not matter. So Nancy, the three teams that have been together the whole time, only two taxis show up. And Nancy is like, you two teams go ahead. And they're like, okay. And the frat bros tell their driver, you come back here after you drop us off to get them. Do not leave them here. And he's like, okay. And Nancy says in her confessional, she's kind of over it. She's like, okay with going home. And that's sad to hear because Emily's head is in this game. And her mom is checking out, and that could be very bad for her. So basically, the end of this task is whoever chooses to do the roadblock will drive like a smart car, have to follow these Italian directions, while the other person gets taken by sports car to the finish. And Frank, who is the speed demon of the group, gets stuck in the slow car. And Drew gets shafted again because he's like, I'll do the roadblock this time, thinking it'll be good. And he ends up driving that, and Kevin gets to take the sports car. And he's like, every single time I got to carry the torch, I go in the sewer, I got to drag the camel, and now I have to ride in this thing while you go in a fucking Ferrari. It's great. Great stuff. And as the teams come to the finish, Frank and Margarita have bumped up to first place. Congratulations. The Guidos are in seconds. They have maintained the top like 3 or 4. Like they don't leave those top few positions. The lawyers finish in thirds. They've made up some time. The frats in fourth. They've fallen back a little bit. And then Nancy and Emily finish in fifth, leaving Lenny and Karen in sixth place. However, the luck, the flying by the seat of their pants never ends because this is the first of 3 non-elimination legs. So while they did come in last place, they will get penalized. They will have to do an extra task. They're not out. They're still in the race. Lenny and Karen have squeaked by every single time. And they're not even like in season 32 that I just watched. The sisters, Kaylin and what was her sister's name? The blonde sisters. They also like squeaked by with non-elimination legs. They had the only 2 non-elimination legs, and they were like at the times that they were elimination legs, they were like one place above the team that like they managed to just beat one team. They were rootable. I wanted the sisters to win. I wanted them to prosper. They didn't, but I wanted them to. Lenny and Karen, they're also just barely getting by, but I'm not rooting for them. So it's just kind of awkward. It's like, can we just get them gone? Like, they're not going to win. Like, I mean, granted, I'll sound really stupid if they do end up winning the season, but I don't see it. Like, they've never finished in a good position. They have consecutively been in the back of the pack. And had this been an elimination leg, they would have went home. Had people not screwed up in the past, they would have went home then. So that kind of ends our 2-episode discussion here. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Did you like Lenny and Karen on this season? If so, give me your reasoning. I'm open for conversation. Was my Bert and Ernie comparison for the Guidos accurate? What do you think? Who do you think they are? Whose side are you on? The frat bros or the Guidos? I'm on both. I want them both in the final leg. I want frat bros, Guidos, and Frank and Margarita to race for the finish. I want the OG Alliance had that tense. Well, I guess frat bros weren't in that. Fuck the lawyers. I want 2 of the 3 teams in the original alliance in the end. With that brings this podcast to an end. Stay tuned next time when I talk about episodes 7 and 8 of The Amazing Race Season 1 and see what team goes home next. Hope it's Lenny and Karen. Also, guys, make sure to look out for Syndicated Vomit, for Film Vomit. So many podcasts, so many videos coming in 2021. It's going to be a very busy year. Stay safe, and most importantly, stay nerdy. Good night.